Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us at World of Pets podcast. We love having you here on a weekly basis. And, we want our pets to live as long as possible, but we want that to be a good quality life. So to that end, we on this podcast explore all things about pets and animals so that we can have them around for a long time, but they are living a quality life. So again, thank you for joining us. Take it away, hosts.
Tonight, that would be you.
Yeah. Thank you, listeners, for coming to the podcast tonight. Our guest tonight is Sonya Shearer. Sonya's husband sadly has Lewy Body Dementia. And so tonight we're going to explore this dog Hazel help both of them through this journey, how Hazel became more than a service dog, and how also she became a quiet connection in their lives. So, we're going to talk about caregiving, we're going to talk about love and connection, and not just what the normal topics that you would think about with service dogs like training and tasks. So, Sonia, first of all, let us know what season of life you were in when Hazel joined your family.
Hi, Debbie and David. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. So when we made this decision to get Hazel or to get a service dog, my husband was about a year, almost 2 years into a lot of craziness with his health, a lot of misdiagnosis, a lot of challenges. And one of the things that we realized very quickly is that in order for him to maintain some independence and still be able to do some things on his own without me hovering over him, the service dog would be one of our best bets. So we made the decision to consider getting a service dog, and that was quite an adventure. Absolutely.
So you were moving into that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what was that process like? Because I hear a lot of people say when you get a service dog, officially a service dog, not just when you put a vest on and call your service dog. What's that process like?
So for us, and the concern for my husband's longevity, as terrible as it sounds, one of the things I knew that we could not opt for is to get a puppy. I've raised Labradors my entire life, so I have a pretty good idea what their demeanor is. So I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to kind of stick in that area if I could. So I started reaching out to just different people, calling breeders. I knew the trainer at the local PetSmart. We were friends, and we just started having some conversation and looking around, and actually had 2 dogs prior to Hazel that we had commitments for, and the owners just could not disconnect. I had one lady that said, you can take the dog, but I need to make sure that I have visitation rights. And I said, so ultimately, we fell into a relationship with this breeder in Minnesota, an absolutely amazing woman. She raises bomb-proof Labradors, that's what she calls them, because she raises these dogs so that they can be service dogs, emotional support dogs. She has gun dogs, hunting dogs, all of that kind of stuff. And we chatted on the phone. And I thought, wow, this just sounds too good to be true. Hazel was a little older than I would have originally considered. She was almost 4. But Mima, as she is called, said, you've got to meet her to believe her. So our total process of searching for a service dog was probably about a year.
Wow.
And then the process of getting her trained and certified followed after that, and that was work in progress over time.
Of course.
And what challenges were you having with your husband during that time that you were waiting? Because you had to have come to the conclusion a while before you got the service dog, and then to have to wait that long.
Absolutely. For quite a bit of time prior to that, my husband was able to go out for a walk. He was able to go and just kind of amble around, and I didn't have to worry about him. And then we started having conversations where he was fearful. He says, I got down to the end of the street and I got kind of turned around and I kind of panicked for a little bit to figure out how to get home. Thank goodness he always had his cell phone in his pocket, and I made sure that his locator beacon was on, so I knew where he was. But when you hit a certain part in your life, what you don't want is your spouse or your loved one just hovering. And it wasn't good for him, for me to hover, and it wasn't good for me to always have to worry. So we figured with Hazel, it would help him with mobility, and probably most important, help him maintain a certain amount of independence. It allowed us to travel and him to get around and do all sorts of different things that he probably would not have been able to do comfortably for him or comfortably for me. So it seemed like a really good option. Plus, having a dog in our house didn't have to twist either one of our arms to be able to do that. So,
Well, that's a beautiful thing. Well, tell us how you and your husband met Hazel, like in person. What was that like the first time?
When I first had conversations with Mima had said, I have this beautiful lab. I have heard your story, because it was like sending email upon email upon email to all of these different people and trying to figure out what's the cost and what kind of dog, and was it a breeder that was maybe an overbreeder, and then we could potentially be faced with some genetic issues. I mean, there was a lot to take into play. What I didn't want was to have a dog that all of a sudden I was also saddled with a lot of health issues. So in speaking with our vet, actually, she gave me some suggestions of things to ask for. So when I ended up talking to Mima on the phone, she said, I have this beautiful lab. She is almost 4 years old. She was to be part of my breeding program. And unfortunately, she has a little bit of discoloration in one of her eyes. It's not a cataract, it's not an issue, but a cognizant breeder is not going to put a dog into a breeder program knowing that there is an issue. It's something that could potentially be an issue. So she said, what I did is, because of Hazel's personality, she became my puppy nanny. And the puppy nanny was who went in with the puppies when the mamas were coming out to be, and the puppies were being weaned. So she was the puppy nanny. And I thought, wow, what a great personality, a great trait to have. And Mima said she mothers everybody, and she has a good heart and a good brain. And she's a well-bred dog. I think she would be a good fit. So we talked about it, jumped in the car in the middle of a horrible, horrible snowstorm going from Chicago up to Minnesota. And we pulled in, and Mima has a beautiful farm up there. They actually raise wheat and beans. And we walked in and sat down, and we were chatting with Sherry for a little bit. And there's Labradors all wandering around, and she's making orders to him, and you go and crate and do this, that, and the other. And I thought, wow, this is synchronicity. It's amazing. And she called, Hazel then was called Truffle. She's Black Truffle. So Mima hollered for her and said, Truffle, here. And she came around, and she kind of stood there and looked at Mima, and she said, go say hi. And she walked up to my husband, and you literally could see her melt. She jumped up on the couch, and she snuggled right in up to against my husband. And Mima looked at me and said, I think you have a dog. And looking at them, we have a picture on the website. We have a picture of them just looking at each other, eye to eye. And that was 100% adoration that was there from the very beginning. And it made my heart swell. And I thought, well, okay, here we go. So
you knew from the beginning that
absolutely
the truffle Hazel.
Yes.
was going to be a
So
great companion for your husband.
yes, the long drive home was, I don't like the name Truffle. And I said, okay, well, we can talk about that. She's had it a long time. And he goes, I like Hazel. And I said, okay. So we were talking about it and got home and started calling her Hazel. And she never bat an eyelash after that. She was Hazel.
Wow.
I would not give a pause except for I'm clearing my tears because that's a beautiful story.
Oh, thank you. It's when you have a connection with a dog, or actually with any pet, because I've had great connections with other pets as well, but when you can just look into their eyes and know that it's there. It's absolutely there. So we welcomed her into our home with open arms. Our oldest grandson at the time was about 4, and he just fell in love with her. And Hazel, over the time, actually had 3 responsibilities. She was service dog to Grumpy, as my husband is called. She was my wingman. As Nana, she was my wingman. And to our grandson Henry, she was almost like his mom. She would boss him around, and she'd like, "What are you doing?" And she would protect him like one of her own. And you could see her very easily adjust from one situation to the next. And I think that's, in many ways, that's can be contributed to Mima and how she raises her dogs. She raises them with love. They are exposed to everything. Nothing bothers them. And I really think that's one of the best things that a service dog can have. It's not just teaching them to do this, that, and the other. They have to feel it.
Right.
They have to be the ride or die for that person, for their human. And Hazel absolutely was that.
That sounds so amazing.
Is
So
there anything that we haven't cut? Oh, sorry, David.
Oh, you're fine. I was going to say, so in the, sorry, I got to wipe my eyes again so I can see my notes. So we had the in the title, today's search, organize, and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd like to bring that into context because I love the way that you presented your relationship. So you've gone through the search, and then you've gone through some of the organized, but what is the conquer part, and how does that relate to your husband?
So the conquer was to make sure that the two of them could trust each other. My husband had never had that type of relationship with the dog where he literally can say, "You have to do everything for me. I have to do everything for you. We are this." We've had dogs. We've raised 4 amazing children and had a variety of pets in our home, but Hazel was different. So he had to learn to trust her, and she had to learn kind of all of his little idiosyncrasies, what he did, how his emotions came into play. And sometimes it was an on the cuff type of thing. So with her ability to really deeply connect with him, she could tell very quickly if it was just a bad day physically, just a bad day maybe emotionally. We've always had what is called syncope. So my husband passes out a lot. He's a large man. He's 6'4", and I'm 5'5", so we're like Mutt and Jeff. But when he passes out, it's get him on the floor, get him comfortable, make sure he's okay. And she literally would put her paws on his chest, and she would just breathe at his neck. That's a connection. That's, you're okay, I'm here, it's all right. And it did relax him once he learned to accept and trust that emotion. And they
So
were.
did the dog prevent some of the syncope episodes doing that? Was that like foresight that I know some animals have, or was that comfort after he had the episode?
This is comfort after the fact. For him, it's challenging to try to see when they come on, although over the years I've kind of been able to tell. It's not something that she was ever trained to do, but boy, she was on it when he had it. And or sometimes he would just have anxiety and he would just sit down and she, snuggle like right up under his arm, and, it's breathing and syncope, and, just looking at her with those big brown eyes saying, it's okay. I'm here. I'm all right. If he wanted to go for a walk, she could get him home. We mapped out and trained a 2-block radius in our neighborhood. And I worked with her literally going probably every 500 feet, turn around, let's go home. And she could take us home. Okay, let's go. Get a little farther out. Let's go home. She'd turn around and go home. So,
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I can't wait. I know the next dog I'm going to have is a service dog at my age for sure. So it's great to have these kinds of conversations. Debbie, do you have any other thoughts?
Of course. So, this was your first dog? I know you've had several because you and I talked.
Sure.
But Hazel was the first, correct?
Hazel was our first service dog.
I mean, not dog, but the service dog.
Yes, she was our first service dog.
So, what was it surprising to you, the connection that she had? Well, you call it the quiet connection, right?
Yeah. It was. I mean, as I mentioned, I had Labradors my whole life, basically growing up. I grew up on a ranch. We had horses and, dogs and cats and, everything. And you do build over time relationships with your dogs. Again, any pet. And it was amazing to me that she connected with him so quickly, but also connected with me quickly. So when we had some hospital visits, and the hospitals were great, allowing her to come in and be with him. There were times when he needed her to be there when he was in his room. We'd bring her a blanket, and she knew that little blanket was placed, and she would go and she'd sit on that blanket until she was invited up in bed. Some of the nurses like, oh, the dog's in the bed. It's a service dog in the bed. They're like, oh, okay. So her ability to comfort him, but then when I'm at home and I'm losing my bananas because I'm scared and stressed and I have to be at home because I can't be there, and her being able to do a very similar thing in that getting in and saying, Mom, it's okay. It's okay. We had a lot of ugly cry moments sitting there wondering what was going to be next. And she was right there with me every step of the way. Every step.
I'll be crying too, David, but hopefully not. I think I told you, Sonya, my husband died of Alzheimer's. And this story makes me wonder. I mean, we always had dogs, but they were never service dogs. So we weren't relying on them in the same way.
Yeah.
And I wish we would have thought, because I think so many people think the same way that I did, that like a service dog does certain things. And we've had several guests who had the one lady that was elderly and fell because of medical condition, and the dog would actually get in front of her so that she would fall on the dog instead of on the pavement. I mean, that kind of thing you just don't think of.
Right. So Hazel was trained. Hazel was trained so that just my husband in his pure size and just the fulcrum of it, there's no way she was going to be able to stop him. But what we did train her to do is that if he did fall, and she would sit with him and comfort him, and then he could get to his hands and knees, and he could put his arm, and it's called brace. So he could rest his arm on her and try to get to something else to try to eventually get up like onto a chair to sit and then ultimately be able to stand up. She opened doors for him. She could get him home. She actually got in between him and I think it was a pit bull. Not that I have anything against pit bulls. I've met some beautiful pit bulls in my life, but this was unfortunately one that was not cared for well. And it shot out that door to go after my husband, and she blocked the dog. She took the hit for my husband. Lay down in front of him until somebody came to help him. So
Yeah.
she was going to do whatever she could for him. So, you know, and I'm sure you know, so to qualify as a service dog, you have to provide, the dog has to provide 3 specific things for the benefit of that person. And that's where we started with Hazel. So as he needed other things, we would train her to do it just because she was so open-minded and so happy to help and easy to train. She's very easy to train.
What do you
So
think?
what are the other two? What are the other 2 things?
I'm sorry?
I said, what are the other 2 things? Because you said you had to have 3 things.
Right. So she could apply pressure on his chest when he was having a syncope moment to help regulate. And then also from an anxiety perspective, she could get him home. She could open doors for him. She would pick some things up for him. And she could maneuver him through a crowd like nobody's business.
Mm.
She actually went to we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we went to the Baseball Hall of Fame up in New York.
Wow.
And boy, she could maneuver him through anything. Like, wait for me. But yeah.
So
Very
if
cool.
there are caregivers watching this, what would you want them to be aware of, or what words of wisdom do you have to share that other people might not think of, especially?
I think for caregivers, a service dog can be a great option when done appropriately. But as you mentioned, when we see these animals being paraded through airports and restaurants and things like that with a, buy it on Amazon vest, that you just look at him and you think, what service is that dog provide? They're emotional support. Emotional support dogs are not in the same category for ADA as service dogs because they actually provide a service for that person. It's something to consider. It's expensive. I'll be very honest. It's expensive oftentimes to purchase the dog, and then it's very expensive to get the dog trained and certified, like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Right.
And, if you can get one young enough that you can raise up and do your basic obedience and your CGC and all of that type of stuff, canine good citizen, all that, and then work with the trainer, that's another option to it as well. That's what we did. My husband was not open-minded at all to taking Hazel and going to a school in Wisconsin for a month. He said, I'm not going anywhere for a month.
No.
So we knew we had to go a different route. So you find the right trainer who knows how to do it and get it done. And that's what we did.
Sounds good. I happened to have my first puppy was my training dog.
Mm-hmm.
He was my litter of one. And when I lost my eye, he was born blind and couldn't see out the other. But boy, did he service me for 16 years, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a connection that happens between a man and animal that's just unimaginable sometimes.
Right.
And it's amazing to watch, and I love it.
Yeah. When they're trained up with love and respect and they're exposed to a lot of things so that they are not fearful, when animals are assertive and aggressive. A lot of times it's based on fear or lack of knowledge. And when you can get animals that are raised up in a fashion that's conducive to that and is loving, you can have an amazing animal. The dog we have now is actually Hazel's great grandnephew. Sorry, I had to say that right. Great grandnephew on the genealogy chart. So Hazel's brother is my dog Moose's grandfather. And let me tell you, when he became available, I went, oh, take him.
Yeah. So one last question, and then we'd like for you to give your final thoughts and also tell people where you can be reached and what you have that you're offering new. Yay.
Offering new. I know I'm so excited.
But how can people recognize quiet support when it shows up with their animals?
You know, quiet support is pay attention and look into their eyes, and you're going to know if they're communicating. That's that quiet connection. And when they're looking at you going, you got to listen to that and go, oh, really? And they're like, no. So yeah, pay attention. Allow that to take place between the two of you, because most people, I think, look at it and go, it's just a pet. It can be, but it can be more as well. So we took that story, my husband and I were chatting one day, and I went down the rabbit hole and I came out with a book, and it's called Hazel the Wonder Dog. And this is the first of the Hazel and Friends stories. Excuse me. Because what this talks about is not only our journey with getting Hazel, but how Hazel established a relationship with my husband and his having dementia. And then it also includes a very nice young man named Hank. So for me, it kind of comes full circle. I think it talks about all of the different relationships that you can have with a service dog. If you want to reach me, you can reach me at our website, which is www.frazzledcaregiver.com. It's really easy. And there is a spot there for you to send us an email. And if you look up at the top of the page, there is a link that says book. So Hazel, the Wonder Dog, the Wonder Service Dog, will be available. It launches next week on the 12th. And then there are 2 other books that will be coming in the next several months. Excuse me. The second book will be Grumpy is Different, which talks about Grumpy and dementia. And then the third book is called Why is Moose So Silly? And that talks about Moose, who is a very silly 3-year-old Labrador, and he doesn't think he's going to pass the test to be a service dog, but he still has that connection.
That's such a great perspective for a story. Yeah. I love it. And
there's a lot of information too on the Frazzled Caregiver website. Just it's the crazy life that we've led through this journey of me being a full-time caregiver for my husband, and a lot of the challenges my husband's had to deal with having a crazy disease like Lewy Body Dementia.
Yes.
It's been a lot.
So
but this is the fun part.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. And we're going to have you back, and we're going to expand the conversation into some other topics. And so I'd like to tell everybody, please, to share the episode, sit with someone in silence, and notice your animals differently. If someone listening feels overwhelmed or alone right now, what would you want them to know?
If they are feeling overwhelmed, just take a breath and ask for help. It's hard. It's hard to ask for help. But there's a lot of different topics on the blog, as we've got scrolling down on the bottom at frazzledcaregiver.com. Look at all of those blogs on there. There's got to be information on there that's going to resonate with you, and maybe at least get conversation started, talking with your family, talking with friends, any of those types of things. And you know what? And if you just need someone to talk to because you just don't know what to do or where to go, there's even a link on there to click on it. You can send me an email and we'll chat.
Great. Very good.
Very cool.
All right. Thank you. Take it away, Bree. Thank you. I'm glad that you joined us for At World of Pets podcast. We would like for you to take a look at what our sponsors have to offer, and that sponsor is debspets.com. You can access it through the QR code, or you can just go to the website. So thank you for joining us, and hope to see you again next week.